Hi, it's Paul from Derivan and welcome to the studio. Today we're going to have a little bit of a watercolour paint. So what I've got here is a piece of watercolour paper and just a HB pencil and a couple of watercolours. We'll go through those later. So the first thing we need to do is draw up our image. So what we need to remember with watercolour is we don't need lots of clues, so don't overdraw it and don't use a rubber. If you make a mistake, leave it there. In fact, I will purposely make some mistakes on here and we'll just redraw them. So don't use a rubber, throw it away. Just use a HB pencil and we just start drawing. Today we're just going to do a little bit of a still life and we're going to leave a lot of the paper too, because that's what creates the dynamics in watercolour. So we'll just suggest end of a pot, some flowers up here. And being springtime, got lots of daffodils and irises and that sort of thing. So, oh, there's a mistake, leave it in. Just redraw this, redraw. Okay, so now that we've got our drawing finished, we can start to add some colour. So I've got a full palette here, but I'm going to use a limited range of the colours. So let's just grab a little bit of water. Now the main thing is here, don't colour in the shapes that you've drawn. I know that sounds funny, but what we want is a sense of what's happening, not necessarily a perfect image. Aren't you all glad about that? You don't have to be perfect. Makes life much easier and much more exciting, particularly in watercolour. It's an absolute must, alright? So I'm just going to start with this one. We're painting very direct, so most of it's going to be one lot of paint and that's it, done. No washes, no glazes, just one attempt. So don't wreck it. No, you can't wreck it. It's alright. And see that drop? Don't worry. It's fine. So we've got our shapes there. And they're roughly in line with what the flower shape was there. Now this is just a bit of yellow deep, but it's not overcritical. There's a bit of lemon yellow added to it, but don't worry, just not raw colour out of the tube. Now, while that's wet and running, I'm going to tweak it just a little bit with the primary red, just to get a little bit orange for the throats of those, or the trumpets of those daffodils. Just a little bit orange in here. And don't be afraid to leave white paper. And also when you have a whole flood or passage of paint there, leave some little holes. So don't colour in the whole shape. Leave little spaces. It'll actually work better for you in the end. Just going to add a tweak more red. Technical term that, tweak more. So just a tiny bit more just to get this darkness in there. And try and just drop it on and let it do its own thing. Watercolour will do its thing. Let it drip like that. Again, don't worry about what's happening on the board. All those things are part of the picture. Alright, now this, where that yellow blob ended up, was actually an iris, but we'll manage that. So I've just got a bit of phthalo and a bit of ultramarine, just together, and some magenta. So we're just getting a mauve. Don't overmix it on the palette, so let those colours strand there. Can you see that they're not overmixed? So I'll show you what not to do, is probably the best thing. Don't do this. Wrong. Pick this up, drop it there. Pick this up, drop it there. Pick this up, drop it there. Have it unmixed on the palette. What that means is that when we deliver the paint to our painting, we get these lovely passages of different colours. Can you see how this petal goes from purple to blue? Let the watercolour work itself. just drop those on. Going to make it a bit more mauve for the next one along, because he's in behind shape. So he's going to actually be in behind, there's a rose sort of shape here. And see how this yellow that was there that we thought was going to be a mistake is just doing its own thing? Just let it do it. Now while we've got that blue, I'm just going to drop just anywhere. It'll just help break up that white. We're going to leave a lot of the white in this painting, so we need those little break up and those little splashes. What I'm going to move to next is just a nice pink. So we're going to use that magenta and that red, and just drop in a suggestion of a rose here. So just plonk it on and let it happen. Now that runs into another one there, so just leave it as that, that's enough. And then it runs into a daffodil here, so let's throw in another daff down in here. And there's another one in behind. So the more we can interrupt shapes or run them into each other, the happier the painting will be. We all need happy paintings. Don't want grumpy paintings. Okay. And just suggestion of shapes, not distinct shapes. So don't try and overwork it, just let it happen. Now, got a little jar here, so I'm just mixing up a dark. So, a bit of your green and either of the reds. Just going to put this in here. Grab a bit of that blue muck. So just grab whatever's on your palette. Don't overthink. Painting's not a recipe. There's not a recipe for sky, and there's not a recipe for the lid, and there's not a recipe for anything. Painting, you know, even if we repainted this, it'd be different again. So just let it do its thing. And this was a little jar of bright red paint actually, so let's get that here because it's just a good colour. So that much, and then change. And we drop that darker in here under here. And while we've got it there, let's add a bit of a shadow. So just pick up the dirt on the palette. Whatever was on your palette, don't think, don't worry. I've just dropped a bit of green in there just so that there's something different. Now green is also the opposite of red on the colour wheel, so that's going to help with that jar. Just going to make it look brighter without you having to place piles of paint on there. Now we might, this is phthalo green, we might just put a greenish sort of pot in there. So phthalo blue and phthalo green will give you a lovely turquoisey colour, which these were sitting in. It's just a little enamelled. Might go a little bit more green than that on this side. There we go. And just drop it into blues around here. I want it particularly blue around here because the next object there is a lemon. But there will be reflected light from that lemon, so I'm just going to pick up a tiny bit of that lemon yellow now and throw it into here. Just around the edge of that lemon. And while we've got that on there, let's drag this shadow in here. So always try and drag your shadows from the object whilst you've got the object wet. So don't plonk them in later. So at the moment they're still all abstract forms, if you like. So what we do is tie those abstract forms together to create the painting. So and notice how dirty the palette is. Don't worry about that again. Just work with what's there. Now, I'm just going to test this colour here because I want this for the cut through part of the lemon. So So I'm just going to use some of that sienna that we've got, the raw sienna, with a bit of that yellow. Let's try and just need to clean this up. Okay, and we're just going to drop it. That's what I'm after. Now the other strange thing with watercolour is we need to remember that watercolour always dries lighter than you put it on. So put it on darker than you think you might need and just let it dry back. Let's get a few of these skin in. Just looking for a good yellow here. I dirtied my yellow a bit, so I'm just trying to dig down back into it before I deliver it to it. It's a bit... That's better. And into here. Now, mauve is the opposite of yellow, so I'm just going to mix up a bit of a mauve. So one of your blues and one of your reds. Don't overthink it, doesn't really matter which one. I am using phthalo and magenta, but not critically important. And I'm just going to gently drag shadows of that back. That's bled into there, but I don't actually mind that. Let those things just happen. Now we need some stalks, so I'm going to use some sap here, but don't use it on its own. Dirty it with whatever's left on your palette. To turn it darker, we would generally add green. To turn the green dark, we generally add red. So just the opposite on the colour wheel. So I've just picked up that primary red, but with whatever dirt was left on your palette. And we're just going to add some stalks in here. And again, don't overthink this. Suggest them, don't state them. Don't worry if they run over and into the vase. And while we've got that there, I'm just going to drop a bit more. So alright. So we're just going to now pop in some stripes into that background there. I'm going to use just your ultramarine with a tiny bit of magenta. But these stripes will just help take the viewer through the picture. And again, don't do them perfect, aren't you glad about that? Just plonk them on. Draw with the brush. Just going to get a nice little dark in there. And if you're not used to using watercolour, just do it like this for a while. Just keep it nice, big, loose shapes. Have a bit of fun with it. Enjoy the process. Now, just going to get that primary red again across the tablecloth. We're just going to suggest some stripes here. So, just take it through and over the back. Just going to throw a tiny bit of yellow into that and drag it here, and then one more that's running in here. So just run over all those shadows, blobs of paint, whatever you've got there. And see how it picked up that blob and turned it green? Doesn't matter. It's all good. It's all good. I'm just going to try and get a little fine line next to those. So I want it fairly stiff. So, but don't, don't get it too neat. Just helps with the dynamics of the picture. So I'm going to just then throw a stripe this way here. And then I think we're done. You don't want to overdo things too much. It's just plonking the suggestion of one. Actually, where this is, just here. Yeah, that's good, that's good. Just coming out here. Just the end of one there. Okay. And there you have it. So just have a little bit of a play. You know, just drop the paint down. Feel what it does on the paper and let it work for itself. Alright? If you need to come back, let that dry off at that stage. If you think it needs filling with, maybe darken up some of those areas. So at the moment it'll look very dark until it dries, then check, because it does dry a little bit lighter. If you need to go in and fiddle, but fiddle carefully. Don't wreck it. And have fun. Thank you for watching.